You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
I think most of the best riders in the world have gone through this phase of like just falling and struggling and just not quite getting it every time. And I think having a good support system is so important, and keeping in mind, like going into the events. I am a very optimistic person. Like I believe if I'm going to a big event, I believe I'm going to be top 3, which is basically winning in my opinion. Like top 5, top 3, whatever, winning. And I'm like, I'm going to win. I know it. I'm going to go for it, And it's been, the hardest thing for me has been like not realizing that. Because as a child or as a younger person, I really, if I tried to win, I was so lucky. I mean, I had good horses, I had good trainers, and I would do well. And then there was this time where like all of a sudden I would think I was going to do really well. I'd have this feeling like I'm going to win this weekend, and then no. And I would like bite it hard, and it just kept happening and happening and happening. And I'm like, what is happening? Like I thought I had this thing where I thought if I tried real hard, it would work out every time. But no, life teaches you differently. And I had to learn like to kind of pivot and figure out, is this, first of all, what I want to do? Is it worth it? And then how much is it worth it? And like really, and not take things so personally, which was a big, big one for me. Because I used to think if I am not winning, I am a loser, like I was I got really caught up in my results and like what it meant about me. And then Natalie helped me so much figure out like, results come and go. It's always changing. Like someone's going to beat you always, like someone's going to be beating you. The sport's changing. Like someone else will win next weekend and they'll forget about you. Like it doesn't matter. You have to be who you want to be and be a good person to your horses and like strive. And that should be enough. And it has become that for me, which is so nice.
5-star eventer Hannah Sue Hollberg has a lot on her radar right now. After taking over Business Ben from fellow eventer Allison Springer earlier this year, she spent the past 9 months fostering a new partnership with a thoroughbred gelding. And the pair has some big dates on their competition calendar this fall, and hopefully another one in the spring of 2025. This October also marks the 2nd anniversary since Hannah Sue announced the retirement of her longtime partner, Harbour Pilot, following his last 5-star run at the 2022 MARS Maryland 5-star at Fairhill, where the pair finished in 10th. Hannah decided to retire the then 19-year-old Irish sport horse gelding after their 12-year partnership to ensure he ended his career healthy and happy, and to give him the opportunity to enjoy lower impact work. Being primarily thoroughbred, Hannah Sue anticipated that the often sassy William would still enjoy having a job. So he partnered with Jacqueline Mars's daughter, Krista Schmidt, for a while to serve as her dressage mount. Now he's back home with Hannah, enjoying full retirement with his favorite pasture mate, Capital HIM, one of the horsewoman's other talented eventing mounts. Hannah and Capital HIM, affectionately known as Cheeto, made their 5-star debut at the 2022 Land Rover Kentucky 3-day event and competed in the CCI 5-star at last year's Maryland 5-star, where they finished 4th and were the highest placed U.S. combination. Hannah remembers growing up on the back of a horse. Her mom, Sue Burnett, who ran a lesson program in Kentucky, fostered the horsewoman's passion and talent from an early age. As a young rider, she was exposed to everything from pony club and hot walking horses at Churchill Downs to galloping horses for Elliott Walden and Niall Brennan, and of course, eventing. Keep the Faith, a 16 two-hand thoroughbred, became her first Kentucky 3-day event horse. She competed in her first 3-star with him in 2006, and the pair did their first 5-star at Kentucky in 2007. As soon as she was old enough, Hannah Sue went to Karen and David O'Connor's farm to serve as a working student, where she also met Jacqueline, her longtime sponsor. While working for the O'Connors from 2008 to 2011, she rode St. Bar's to victory at the USEF National CCI 2-Star Championship at Fairhill and the USEF National CCI 3-Star Championship. She went on to become a silver medalist at the 2011 Pan Am Gold Medal Games aboard Harbour Pilot, represented Team USA in a number of European events, gained plenty of 5-star experience, and most recently placed third at the MARS Bromont CCI 4-Star Long with capital HIM last June. With as many thrilling successes as Hannah has had in her eventing career, she's also endured disappointment and heartbreak. About 5 years ago, she took an unfortunate fall after a fluke buck in the dressage warm-up arena and suffered substantial injuries to her core muscles. Her recovery was hampered by initial misdiagnoses from 2 doctors, but she ultimately credited the U.S. eventing team's Dr. Mark Hart and her now husband, show jumper, Matt Hollberg, for seeing her through recovery. Hannah ended up needing complicated surgery to reattach a majority of her core muscles. While the recovery was long, often excruciating, and required her to learn how to ride again, Matt, who's also Hannah's show jumping coach, helped her find her riding legs again through slow and steady progress. It took 3 years to find normalcy, but she was grateful to reach full recovery. Early on in her career, Hannah Sue suffered from extreme bouts of doubting herself and struggled to maintain her confidence and competition nerves, and almost gave up the sport. But over the years, the ever-resilient horsewoman has learned to pick herself up by the bootstraps like a true professional, with poise, grit, and always a sense of humor. In today's podcast, we talked to Hannah Sue about what's new on her horizons, the incredible partnerships she shares with her horses, her training philosophies, and how she finally overcame her lack of confidence through perseverance and her passion for eventing and horses. Before jumping into the discussion, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this podcast, Horse Week, and share their message. Celebrate the splendor of horses during Horse Week. Join us for the ultimate equine celebration during the Horse Week Film Festival, brought to you by Boehringer Ingelheim, October 20th through 26th. This extraordinary event unites horse enthusiasts from around the globe in a free, week-long online film festival dedicated to the awe-inspiring world of horses. Sign up for our free newsletter to stay in the know and tune in live October 20th through the 26th at horseweek.tv. Hi, Hannah Sue. Welcome to the Practical Horseman podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are thrilled to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's going to be fun.
Awesome. So Hannah Sue, I wanted to start with what's kind of new on your radar. We understood that you semi-recently took over Business Ben's reins from Allison Springer. Can you talk a little bit about this or anything else that you're kind of currently focused on?
Yeah, for sure. I got Business Ben, or Benny, we call him, in the barn I think in January of this year or December of last year, Christmas present, I've always loved that horse, and I've been trying to buy him from Allison for like 10 years. And she never would sell him to me, but she just bought a farm and she needed some money, obviously, to pay for things. And she called me about him. And I'm a little bit strange in this way as far as eventers go. I love kind of taking horses that I've already been around, like at the top level even, and seeing if I can kind of, ride them basically and even improve them sometimes. And I've always loved doing that. And so when he came up for sale, I was like, ooh, I want to see if I can ride this one, Yeah. So I've been taking my time on him. That's one thing I've learned, through the years. When you're catch riding, basically, he's been completely produced by somebody else his whole life. It takes time, and you have to kind of let the horse learn about you and you learn about them, and just get your groove together. So I've gone pretty slowly, I think some people might think. And Allison's been really supportive, and it's been really fun. I think he's going to do the 4-star short at Morven Park this next weekend. And then hopefully, if that goes well, we'll do the 4 long at Terra Nova, with our sights being on the 5-star at Kentucky in the spring. So it goes slowly and then really fast. It's kind of my plan. Right. So, because he's already got all the miles and he knows what his job is. The cross country is like super, super easy for him. So if I can steer him properly, he's going to do it all. And the show jumping is the weaker phase for him, and that's my favorite phase. So we've been, my husband and I, who's a show jumper, we've been kind of ticking away at the show jumping all year. And so yeah, I'm excited about him. It's a fun little project,
Yeah, that's super exciting. And kind of in regards to Benny, can you tell us just a little bit more kind of about your new partnership with him, and maybe a little bit on like how do you go about developing those partnerships with new horses?
Okay, yeah. So anytime I get on a new horse, or even my horses that I've had for years, I try to just kind of get on and let them kind of settle and not have super strict or rigid expectations for the ride, or even kind of, if I have a goal in mind, like I try not to get too hung up on like, this needs to be like this right now. I need to learn how to make this horse go faster in the trot or something, like I try not to do that. I get on and I kind of like see how they feel, and try to connect with them basically just at the walk, and like on a loose rein, and then kind of connect with them and see if they want to follow me. And then kind of, it sounds really silly, but kind of go from there and just feel it out. Like, horses are just like people. You can't just hop on and be like, we're going to jump, advanced height today.
Right.
It's just very unrealistic, which is actually it's pretty hard to try horses, I think, when you're trying to buy them, because you have to get on and you do have to jump sometimes really big and see if you get along. And I think it's an unrealistic way of figuring each other out. But anyways, side note. So yeah, I've just been kind of getting to know him and trying to see what I can do for him, I guess, is my mentality when I ride horses that don't know me. And even the horses that know me, I try to be there for them and help them understand their job, and then make it as easy as possible for them to do their job well.
Right.
And choose to do what I want them to do, instead of forcing them or, demanding and being frustrated, because it just doesn't work, and it's not really my personality. So
Right.
I don't know if that answers your question or not.
No, that was great, because we all, when we enter into new partnerships with horses, it's that very much resonates. So
yeah, I like to set goals, but not be, I have goals competitively with the horses, but they're not, I don't have to find all the things that I need in competition at home necessarily.
Right.
I know that the horse knows all these things, and I know that he has a certain way of being ridden that I don't probably ride that way sometimes. And I trust that he knows these things, and then I trust that I've got the skills as well. So I just try to find like a connection, and actually with Benny, it's been probably the hardest I've ever had getting a connection with the horse. I think just because he has been with Allison only for his whole life, and he's 14. So it's a big task. And I think he's starting to really like me now, though. So not that he disliked me before. He was just kind of like, who are you? Like, where's my girl? It was cute. So
That was awesome. We wish you guys the absolute best of luck.
thanks.
And Sue, speaking of special horses, we talked to you back in 2022 at the Maryland 5-Star, where you announced the retirement of your longtime eventing partner, Harbour Pilot, with a 2024 Maryland 5-Star and the 2-year anniversary of his retirement fast approaching. Can you talk a little bit about your partnership with him and what you guys learned from each other?
Oh my goodness. Yes. I learned everything.
Write a novel about it.
Yeah, I learned everything from him. How to do it, how not to do it a lot of the time. William is what we call him. I've rode him for over a decade. He has a lot of personality. Still to this day, he makes his feelings known always. If he doesn't like something, he's not gonna do it, basically. And I had to learn how to kind of keep him happy and with me when he was nervous, which, I didn't always do the best. I didn't always know how to do that. And I was young and I was really nervous too. Had a lot of pressure with, traveling overseas and doing all these things that I'd never done before. And so we kind of bounced our way through all of that and figured it out as we went. But I was glad that as I went on in my career and with him, I was able to give him more stability and just within myself be able to be calmer and know what I want and know what I need to give to him and be able to be that stable partner for him, which he really did need because he would just get so wound up. But
yeah,
he's still in my barn. He's in the field now, and he comes in as well. He has a stall, of course, but he's the king, and he knows it. And he's still sassy as all get out. I saw a video of his sire cruising a few days before he passed away, whenever he passed away a couple years ago, and he's the lady that owned him or the breeder or whatever is hanging like a kite from him, going to the field. And she's like, I usually just let him run. And I think of that all the time with William because he's just some days he's just so wound up and you can't hold on to he has his own ideas of what he should be doing, but he's hilarious.
That's so funny. And you basically answered my question because I wanted to kind of know what he's like to ride and train.
Well, actually riding him, he is so serious. He loves working. It's like a thoroughbred in that way. He has a lot of thoroughbred blood, but he's very, very serious and does anything you want, really, really well trained, easy to ride. I love riding him, especially on the flat. And he so easy. But then if there is something that disrupts his normal life in any way, a down limb or something, he is a complete disaster. And you can't really count it. You can't talk him out of it. He's no, that is scary and I'm not going near it. I don't care what you say. Goodbye. He's just gone. So he's a very strong flight instinct, but I've learned to kind of, avoid scary things, but
that's awesome.
It's really random what he's scared of. It's mostly natural things, like tree limbs. That's a big one. I don't know why.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
My horse was scared of a random large rock on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. It's natural things. I'm you're supposed to be. This shouldn't be scary to you.
Yeah, exactly. And last time we spoke with you, I believe he'd partnered up with Jacqueline Mars's daughter, Krista Schmidt, to serve as her dressage mount. So did he end up doing that for a while?
Yes.
He's back now, or?
Yeah, so she rode him for a while. So she owns a lot of my horses with Miss Mars together or, separately as well. And she was riding him and she loved riding him, and they loved each other. I mean, it was like the cutest thing ever. Like he just he never would spook at a limb with her, you know what I mean? Like he was just like, oh, I love her. Right. And she gave him treats and stuff, but he so happy. But he had colic surgery over the winter. He's never colicked in his life, but I went to Chat Hills with his stablemate, capital HIM, and was in the 4-star, and William decided, I guess, that he was upset about that for some reason, and he decided to colic for the first time and had to have surgery. And so he, ever since he had surgery, he hasn't been ridden since then. I mean, he's 21 this year, and
right.
Krista loves him and wants him to be healthy and happy. So
yeah, I was going to ask if you ever just hop on him for a little bit or anything.
No, I mean, I probably could, but
yeah,
I don't
probably
know.
not enough time.
He likes Krista the most, I think, at this point.
I love it. And so can you talk about, were there any other like influential horses in your life that you feel like, you know, kind of made an impact?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many. I have been so fortunate in all the horses I've gotten to ride. One that really stands out. Well, my first event horse, he was a horse size. I had ponies before that. I was 14. He was full thoroughbred, and his name was Keep the Faith. My family named him that, and we're a Christian family, and our farm was called Leap of Faith Farm. Yeah. So we named him Keep the Faith, and he was like he was just the best horse ever, and he took me from training level all the way to 5-star. Well, back then it was 4-star. Yeah. But I did my first Kentucky on him in 2007, and I was 20 years old, and I was so green. I mean, I just would hold the mane, you know? I was just like, I had to run out because I just didn't steer him. He just went straight by because he didn't know, because I was too scared. You know, I was like, oh, there goes the jump. But he was so amazing and beautiful and lovely. So he was a huge, huge reason why I do this sport in general. And then one that really stands out is RF Demeter. She was obviously Marilyn Little's horse, and she did 5-star with Marilyn. And then I got her later in life, kind of like a business bin situation. And I got to ride her for a whole year and compete her in Europe. And it was the most fun I've ever had. I mean, she was just a machine. And she went really differently than I'd ever like ridden horses at that level. She was like a bit more downhill and like loved to gallop with her head really low, and not a lot of thoroughbred blood. So I got to learn how to ride because I just trusted that she knew how to do it. You know, right. Whereas normally I would be like, this is really scary. Her head's so low. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was so fun. I mean, I just owe her so much. And then, I don't know, there's a bunch. Capital HIM, I love him. He's a lot like, personality-wise, like my first horse, Keep the Faith. He's just a saint of a horse. It's like he's already lived in this world before. Like he's been here before. He knows everything. Like he's just so wonderful and kind, and I'm obsessed with him. He's lovely. Always steps up for me. So.
And speaking of capital HIM, we understand after the Burley horse trials this year that you guys got some unfortunate news about him.
Yeah.
You feel like sharing any of that?
Yeah, I don't mind. He so at Burley, you know, we'd had such a good year last year. He was Horse of the Year, top American at Maryland 5-star. He was 4th place, like amazing. This year I've had a bit of a rough go in general with all the horses, like as far as results go, but I'm trying to up the game a bit, and you know, things kind of, you fall off a lot when that happens, I guess. But anyway, so our preparation was pretty good with him, and then afterwards I was trying to figure out kind of what was going on with him, and I galloped him the other day, and my good friend Jenny Brannigan suggested I use her heart rate monitor. And so I used that, and I galloped with Buck Davidson, and Bruce Davidson were there with me, and he just kind of like petered out halfway up the hill the second time. It was so weird, and luckily I had that heart rate monitor on, and we found out he went into AFib. And so thank God, you know, I was able to pull him up and take him home, and he's totally fine, and we've done a bunch of tests on him, but this was going to be his last event anyways at Maryland, but we're going to retire him obviously before that now. So
Right.
I'm just so grateful that he's okay and that we have all this technology to help us understand everything. And I mean, I would never push a horse if they couldn't go, like I would just
Right.
never, that's not who I ever would be. So I'm just glad that he's all right and that my owners are so supportive and love him so much. And he's going to be retired with Harbour Pilot. They're best friends. So it
Oh,
works out well.
that works out perfect.
Yeah, it's a not the ending I had hoped for, but I mean, it's not about what I hope for, it's about the horses, and I owe him so much. And he loves eventing more than any horse I've ever ridden. I mean, he loves every part of it, and it's so cute, and I'll just miss competing him because he's so wonderful, and we had such a good partnership. But luckily I'll see him all the time, so it'll be all right. I'm so kind of try to be positive and optimistic anyways, naturally. And then I'm like, dang, I should have saw this coming. Like, why didn't I think about this before?
Right.
They hits you like a ton of bricks. It's the same thing with Harbour Pilot. I was like, man, I just didn't think about how it's going to feel
Yeah.
after,
Yeah. No.
But I mean, got a lot of memories, so I'm lucky.
That's what we rely on.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of shifting gears a little bit, Hannah. I think it was about 5 years ago that you took a fall where you sustained pretty substantial injuries to your core muscles.
Hmm.
I feel like so many of us can relate to learning to ride again after an injury,
Mm-hmm.
self included. Can you
Oh
talk
no.
about your recovery a little bit from kind of a physical and mental health standpoint? And, if you have
Yeah, so I fell and it's such a weird fall. I mean, it was like not that big of a deal. It's very embarrassing, actually. I was at Radnor Hunt Pony Club horse trials on like my big fancy horse trying to just practice dressage. And I was in the warm up and he bucked me off in dressage warm up. No joke. And I went flying straight up and then I landed just right on my like right hip, basically, and just like didn't move. I was like 3 stories up and just bam, landed. And I was like, that didn't feel normal. And I stood up and I was like, I think I'm fine. But I couldn't put weight on my right leg at all. I mean, I could, and I was in shock, so it didn't hurt, but my leg wouldn't hold. Like it was like popping. It was so weird. So I convinced the EMS to put me in my car and I drove home. Anyways,
horsewoman right there.
I know, I was like, I'll be fine. Just put me in my car. Anyways, so I went home and then my mom came and rescued me, and my my fiance at the time like came and took care of me. But I was misdiagnosed for 6 weeks and I was trying to walk like for 6 whole weeks. And I was like, what's wrong with me? The doctors are saying I should be walking, So I'm like trying and trying and trying. And I've got a walker, like an old lady, and I'm just struggling. And I'm building all this scar tissue, which I found out later. And then Mark Hart, who's like the United States Olympic doctor, like team doctor guy, he's the best. He saw me and he was like, why are you still using a walker? And I was like, I can't walk. Like, I'm trying. And I felt so bad. And he's like, no, this is wrong. And so he sent my MRI to somebody, and then I ended up having to have surgery like the next day, basically. And all of my core muscles, my adductors and my abductors were like ripped off the pubis synthesis. It was just like a complete disaster. They had to like reattach everything, and it was like a pelvic floor reconstruction, basically, like a complete horrible surgery. But I could walk right away afterwards, which was great. But I couldn't ride for 4 months, I think. I mean, I couldn't ride anyways before. I tried and it was so painful. And then so after this rehab and all this stuff, learning how to walk again, gained a bunch of weight, obviously, because I'm just sitting around kind of depressed, waiting to be okay. Tried to ride and it was just, I just remember thinking, my career is over. I don't know how to ride. I've never learned how to ride because I grew up riding, like from a baby. And I don't remember learning how to balance. It's not something you think about, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it was like, it was just this horrible like realization. And I told my friends, I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to do this again. It's over, And my husband, I was married then, I'm married now. He was so sweet, and he would just like walk around with me, like leading me around and like teach me how to ride. He's like, all right, you're gonna just squeeze with your lower legs a little bit and like just regain all those muscles that I never knew I had or thought about. And I learned how to ride, and it took a while. But I started, I had good horses that were ready to go. And so I started competing probably way too soon, and I tore a bunch of scar tissue. I mean, it was extremely painful, and my owners were so sweet and so supportive and got me anything I needed. And it took I think it took me 3 years really to completely come back. I was competing right away, but I was not myself. My horses really took care of me, except for William, who tried to buck me off all the time.
Naturally.
He's so bad. He's like, there's something wrong with her. Get her off me. He's like so funny. But it was a really trying time, and I would just cry like every day. And I'm not a big crier, like I'm pretty tough. I can handle whatever. And I just thought, like, my life is over. I have to do something totally different with my life. And I mean, it was just so, ugh, it was horrible. And every time they trip or something, I'd be like, it was so painful.
Yeah.
And my horses were so good to me, and it's something that, I guess you really figure out what you want to do and if it's important to you, and you take it day by day. It's amazing how much time has passed since then, because it feels like last year to me,
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's wild.
Exactly. And Hannah, in several prior interviews, you've talked about struggling with your confidence. Do you think that all writers experience this at some point in their careers? And can you talk a little bit about how you navigated through that, and any advice you might have to others?
Yeah, for sure. I work with a mindset coach called her name's Natalie Hummel. She's amazing. I started working with her, I think like 4 years ago. It was like right after I was starting to come back from this injury. Like most of the hard part of relearning how to ride had been done. Yeah. But she has taught me so much. I mean, I was basically, before I got injured, I was really struggling for years and years, like 5 years, of just not thinking I was any good at the sport at all. I mean, in the cross country mostly, because it's scary, and I kept making mistakes, and I want to be excellent, like everyone. You don't want to just go out there and screw it up all the time. And I was getting all these opportunities, and I just didn't feel worthy of them, and I kept screwing it up, and and then I just started not really liking it that much, any of it, because I just felt like a failure all the time. And I started working with Natalie, and she taught me to learn to feel instead of avoid, and I was always kind of like, oh no, I feel like this is going to go badly. And so I would like avoid that feeling and avoid this feeling. And I don't know how to do this. I'm going to avoid trying to train. It got to the point where I just wouldn't train at all because I was too scared of screwing it up, even in training. And so I would just go out on like at 5-star and 4-star without practicing that much. I mean, I would practice at shows, not very well, but it was like, it was horrible. Yeah. And I would go out there, and of course you're going to fail. I mean, the sport is pretty hard. This is a while ago. It wasn't quite as hard as it is now. Like now you really gotta know your stuff, because it's pretty technical. But back then I could kind of wing it and get away with that. I had a really, I had William, he was amazing. Yeah. He wanted to do it. But it was just, it got so, and I was scared of hurting him, it was just terrifying basically. And she taught me to not avoid these feelings and to like really feel them and confront them. And then I started kind of chipping away at learning how to push myself to be uncomfortable and be okay with being a failure, basically. I had to accept that I was a failure, at certain times, like everyone else, and that I fail, and that it's okay. The only way that you get better is to fail. And it's the only way to learn. So I had to figure that out, and now I think about it all the time. Like when I get on for a jump lesson or a cross country school especially, I'll think about it to myself. I'm like, okay, this is probably not going to go that great. You know? I mean, it might not. It might go great. It might not. That's okay. Either way, I'm going to take everything as it comes and be okay with it and just keep trying and learning and proceeding, you know? Because I got to the point where I'm kind of different than a lot of eventers. If I don't think I can do it perfectly or quite well, I don't want to do it at all. Whereas a lot of eventers like just hammer, even if it's the wrong thing. You know, they just practice the wrong thing a lot, I think. And so I'm like, I'm not going to do this at all until I can figure out how to do it, at least, you know? But then I'd be like, let's go to the event. And, like, you know, it's just not a good idea. Right. So it's come a long way. And now I really know myself, and I know when I'm avoiding things, or like if I need to be pushed, and I put myself in situations where people push me, you know, like my husband is a show jump trainer, and he's like, no, we got to practice this again. And I'm like, I think we're good for the day. And he's like, no, we're going to do it again. We're going to do it 3 more times. I'm like, no, you know, because I'm just like, I like to be great at things, but you can't be great if you don't practice.
Right. Exactly.
And fail, you know?
Exactly. And speaking of Matt, because I was just going to ask you about him, being your show jumping coach, can you, outside of your coaching, can you tell us just what it's like to share the same passion as your partner, and kind of what training with him is like?
We get along just so well. We have so much in common, just personality wise. Which is really, really useful, I think, in this situation, because, I mean, if you're not kind of thinking on the same lines, it would be difficult to work with someone like all the time and live with them and stuff. I just have so much respect for him and the way that he works with horses and the way that he thinks about things and how he teaches people. It's like he can do more than anyone I've ever seen in my life in one warm-up with a person he's never taught in his life. And he barely says anything. And I'm just like, what is happening? I mean, I'm just trying to figure it out all the time, still to this day. I'm like, how did you do that? She normally pulls 4 rails. She jumped clean for the first time in her life. And it's not a fluke. He does it every single time with every person he works with. It's amazing. And he's like, well, I just knew what she needed to hear. And I'm like, well, how did you know? You didn't even know her until 20 minutes ago. And he's like, well, I could just see she was nervous and she needed, you know, a little bit of confidence, and the horse needed confidence too, and not to be, you know, overfaced. Yeah, and I'm like, what on earth? I mean, it's amazing. Incredible. So I think it's like, I'm just always trying to learn from him, which is a good way to not get too fussy with each other, I think. And I think he respects me too. I mean... Hopefully. He's always very complimentary and nice, and he's we like to help each other. He doesn't have as much background in like groundwork and like kind of working in the barn as much as I do, like horsemanship stuff. He's, you know, a show jumper from the beginning, so I've taught him a lot of like that kind of stuff. And he loves cross country as well, which is so nice because he can ride like horses that I'm struggling with, and he's stronger and taller, and, you know, he can handle things that I'm sometimes not able to. So I love working with him. I mean, there's definitely times in the barn where I'm like, oh my gosh, clean up your stuff, you know, like why? But
like most couples argue about it in their house, but in the barn.
Yes, exactly. Right. The house we don't really argue about. It's just the barn. Right. But it's been so much fun, and I love like, because we're in different sports, I think it's also easier, you know, because I get to go watch him and support him and like help him in ways that he doesn't normally get help in, you know, like taking care of the horses or helping them prep, and then and he can be there for me, and it's really, I love it. It's so much fun.
I mean, that is such a cool aspect, that you can constantly be learning stuff from each other, you know?
Yeah, and it's like, it's so useful for eventing to be with someone that show jumps, or like, you know, Boyd and Silva. It's like, it's so useful to have someone that's like in your corner that's a specialist. So
maybe you can at least teach Matt a little bit of dressage sometime.
No, he's so good on the flat, but yeah, I did tell him, I was like, if you become an eventer someday, you gotta learn a lot about dressage. Yep. I don't think he desires that though, so.
And Sue, in another interview, there was something you said about that Matt helped you find success through simplicity. And I thought that concept was really interesting and just wanted to see if you could speak a little more about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think eventing or eventers get like really caught up in like so many details because we have so much to think about. It's not our fault. I mean, there's so much to do. Dressage on its own is like a freaking nightmare with all the details, you know? And then we have two other phases. So I love the way he makes everything really, really simple. Like everything is the same all the time, which I have taken from him and put into practice in the other phases as well. Our practice when we're jumping at home is like the warm up is exactly the same as at the show, no matter what. Like the way we get on the horses and walk them around or whatever, and like all the way to jumping, like we jump the exact same type of jump. And we do the same things before and after the jump that we do at the show. So we're practicing this. It's kind of like, I relate it to like basketball teams, you know, they have this like practiced warm-up routine that they like go through. And I used to watch some basketball stuff when I was in high school, you know. Yeah. And they like have this little routine, and I always was so jealous of that. I'm like, I want a routine for riding because I don't know what I'm doing at the shows, you know. And I felt like so dumb, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. And then I wouldn't do anything, and then I wasn't prepared, you know, to go in the ring. I was so scared. And so then when I met Matt, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so nice, because you don't have to think about what you're going to do. You've already done it every single day on all these horses, and the horses love it too because it's like dependable, you know? Yeah. You're not trying anything crazy in the warm-up. You're just going through your normal routine every single time. Yeah. And it just makes such a big difference. And the way that he has me practice, you know, it all builds on itself. So to see a better distance, or like to know where you are in the line, you know, we jump very small at home, and we practice like different strided lines, and we practice it over and over and over. So in the beginning, you might get too close to the second jump, you know, and then by the fifth or sixth time, you figure out how to make each stride the same so that the takeoff is very good. And then you make it a little bit more complicated, but it's always the same idea. Like you don't start pulling them and kicking them and doing all this crazy stuff. Like you ride well at home, and then the horses jump better. And then the horses go better at the shows because you're riding the same. It's no tricks. It's just like good riding. That's what he always says. Yeah. He's like, if you ride well, the horses will go well. They will. It might take longer with some, you know, to learn how to do it. But like, if you just stay consistent and you show them an easy way to jump every time as best you can, you know, I mean, everybody makes mistakes, but you give them like the best chance possible to jump well every single jump, they will jump well. They want to do what we want them to do. They're the best animals ever. Right. You know, they're so giving. So if we just show them an easy time, and I think that eventing, especially in the show jumping, there's this like mentality around like we need to force them into like making it so hard that they have to like try their guts out every single jump, like at the top level. And I'm like, that is just not, I mean, would you try your very best every single time if it was so hard? No one would. You'd give up. I mean, you'd give up. It's too hard. You can't do it every single time. So if you show them an easy time and you make it possible for them to clear the jumps, nobody wants to hit their legs on stuff. I mean, that's painful. Right. You know, like, yeah. If you make it easy for them, easy enough, and they can do it, they will do it. They will do a good job. It's just how they are. Yeah. Do, you know, like having a great time. Yeah. And everyone else is like pulling their hair out and freaking out. What are we going to do? You know, and I'm just like, this is so cool to watch because I don't have to feel that way at all. Yeah. You know? Yeah. No, my horses are the same. They're like chilling, you know, they're happy.
You know how to do this. And then Hannah Sue, I wanted to pivot back to your riding roots for a quick moment. Can you talk a little bit about like how you got started with your mom and what especially kind of drew you to eventing?
Yeah, for sure. My mom rode as a kid and has always ridden her whole life. So I grew up basically riding. She had not like a riding school, but she always taught lessons and is very, very good at teaching like basically anything. She's very intelligent. Both my parents are. I'm very lucky. But she like has a very nice systematic way of teaching things. I remember picking like her teaching me how to pick a hoof for the first time, like when I was a little child, like probably 4. Like I remember it. So anyways, she taught me, and I was in pony club and I learned all the horsemanship stuff, and I fell off these little terrorist ponies every day, basically, and learned how to be tough and get back on. And I did like games stuff with Pony Club, which I really loved. I used to be really athletic, I guess. I could like jump on and off of them and stuff. And then my mom got me into, she told me at one point that she's going to try to teach me all these different ways, or like give opportunities of different ways to learn how to do things in horses, like race horses and Western and polo and all these different things. And then I can kind of figure out what I like best and make that my own way of dealing with horses and handling them and riding them and stuff. And so she, it's pretty cool. I mean, it was just so thoughtful of her, and I got to do all these cool things. Like I galloped racehorses when I was 14. I worked at Churchill Downs, and I hot walked, and they would for like a really big name trainer now. But back then it was kind of smaller, and they would, I was so short. I was like 4 feet, no joke. And I was just like hanging on the end of the lead rope, and they're 2-year-old racehorses at Churchill Downs. And the guy would just like shank them back down to earth. And then I'd just go flying around the shed row, they'd come back, shank them back down. It was like so funny. And I learned how to like clean a straw stall, and I learned all these different things, how to bandage like a racehorse person, and how to do the pony club way, and how to do polos the polo way, like all these different things. And now I use it kind of as a blend is how I want to do stuff, and it's really, really useful. And then pony club was at least into eventing back then. So I did my first like D2 rally when I was 8, and I did cross country, and I fell off 2 times, and I cried the whole way, and I couldn't make my pony do anything. And she stopped at every jump, and my mom was like so devastated. They wouldn't let me be eliminated. It's like completely different than now. Now they're like, you trip and you're eliminated and can't even like walk them off the course,
Yeah.
Back then they're like, you have to keep going, and they like made me keep going, and I was like, I can't make her do it. And my mom I just remember just crying when I finished. She felt so bad, because she wanted me to love it. But I did end up loving it, so I don't know why. But yeah, it was a long road of lots of failures, I guess.
Right.
But that was fun.
Like you said, that's how we learn.
It is. It's true. I mean, can't get better if you're not screwing it up.
Exactly. Were there any other mentors who especially influenced you?
Yeah, for sure. I got the opportunity to ride with Karen and David O'Connor when I was quite young. They took me in, and I got to be a working student for them. And I worked for them for forever, like 8 years or so, and got to ride. That's where I met Mrs. Mars and started riding for her. And then and they taught me everything from Pony Club up. I mean, I was like a green little kid that was holding the mane at 5-star, and they taught me how to do all these cool things. And Karen taught me how to be a competitor, which I love. And David taught me how to be like a horseman, I think. He taught me all the little details, and she taught me the details of being a winner, which she still, helps me with sometimes. And David's wonderful. And then I recently got involved with riding with Lucinda Green, who's like the complete opposite of David and Karen, because I was having all these problems cross country, and I was like, I kind of need to like do something really uncomfortable. That's what I felt like, which was scary, but I was like, I need to be better, so I need to do something that's different, completely different. And and she is completely different than anything I'd ever done. The way that she trains is so cool, though, and I loved it. And Catherine Coleman, my good friend who lives in England in the summers and Florida in the winter, she introduced me, and I went to a clinic, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so freaked out by it. And she had me doing all these like weird angles and all these little very kind of like very small jumps, but like really difficult things, and taught the horses how to kind of fend for themselves a bit, which I had never really done anything like. And like got my reactions a lot quicker, and just taught me more like scrappy riding, kind of like back to my roots as a child. And she like has had a huge influence on my cross country riding. And it's like since then, like skyrocketed with confidence and being able to set things up in a way that's very safe to practice, but also very informative and gives really good feedback afterwards. So, you know, you can build on it, and you can feel like, okay, my horse can handle these weird situations where they have to go straight by a jump. They think they're jumping and jump something else, or like these crazy angles, they'll start to look for them themselves, which is so cool. So she's been hugely instrumental.
That is awesome.
And she still like comes to 5 stars and walks with me and stuff, which I love.
Yeah, so cool. And Hannah, can you talk a little bit about your personal training philosophy with your horses, and especially if there are also any like favorite exercises or type of work that you feel like you really benefit from?
Yeah, for sure. So I love going kind of slowly. I've said that, I guess, a little bit today, like taking my time and like really breaking it down and making things really simple. Because I think if you can really get a bond with the horse, you can do things that like in competition that you would normally not be able to do, because you're speaking the same language basically. And I like to be very still and let the horse like basically take charge and like kind of follow them a little bit. I mean, I definitely want to be the one in charge, but like because they don't know what we're doing, you know, like they're just hanging out with me. But I like to have them like know that we're together, I guess. And all of my flat work is really stemming on that. So I go quite slowly on the flat. Actually, my friend Lillian Hurd the other day was like, she goes, I was doing what I call the Hannah Sue. And I was like, what is that? And she goes, I was just trotting around real slow at the show. And my horse is just completely, you know, behind the leg and kind of got his head up and not really tracking up or anything. But he was so happy and he was following me, and I could go faster and slower with just my posting. And I'm like, that is the Hannah Sue. I mean, that is what I do. Because if they are like listening to you and you're not having to do anything, especially with your hands, you can do anything. I mean, you can push them in the dressage arena if they're waiting on you, you know, but if they're pulling you and dragging you, or you're kicking them all the time and they're kind of running away from you, you have limited access to what you can do.
Right.
So I always think kind of less is more, and listen, like really listening to your horse and trying to understand them, because they're all different, just like humans, and they have preferences, you know, which you can kind of go down a rabbit hole of preferences with horses. And I understand that, which I do often. But I think it's important, especially at the upper levels, if you're trying to get the very best out of something, a horse or a human, like everything shouldn't be so hard, you know? It should be a delight. It should be fun. And if everything is painful or difficult, I wouldn't do it. I mean, no way. So I try to understand, you know, even like bits or whatever, and I make everything as simple as I possibly can to get the biggest effect, I guess. And I try to do less all the time. Like I start off with very basic tack. Like a lot of people just ride and flash nosebands for no reason. I don't understand that. Why would you do that? There's no reason. You know, like maybe the horse wants to have their mouth open. They don't have to have it perfect all the time. Just because you want it to be closed for competition in dressage, that doesn't mean you need to close their mouth all the time. It's uncomfortable.
Right.
You know, and like understanding the anatomy of the horse and like why they do certain things is really important, I think, and overlooked a lot because people, you know, get a little bit like, oh, just get over it and just make them do it. And I'm like, that's not my way. Not at all. You know, like I want them to want to do it. I want them to desire to be with me and to do what I want them to do, which takes a lot of thoughtfulness.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I sound probably kind of crazy, but
Not at all.
it works for me.
Yeah, exactly. And what is it about the sport of eventing that's kept you involved for so long?
Oh, wow. Honestly, I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, why am I still doing this? Because it is so difficult. And I think I just love struggling. You know, I really enjoy having to try really hard and like in a lot of different ways, which I think is so unique to eventing. Like you have to try to understand the horse. You have to try to make their job easy. You have to try to make them feel good. And you have to try to be a good athlete and to be good at all three phases, which is so difficult. And mastering even one of them is a lifetime of trying. So I love variety, I think, as well. I get bored easily, so I like kind of switching it up and changing things a lot, and I love a challenge.
I love it. Of course, in the sport of eventing, things often don't go as planned, and you have to kind of learn with those disappointing moments. Um, can you speak kind of to like how you deal with those moments?
Yeah, it's been kind of my whole life of figuring out how to handle huge disappointments, which I've had quite a bit, and especially this year. It seems like it's just getting worse this year. I'm trying hard and things are going so well in so many ways, better than ever in most ways, but the results are just not quite getting it, at the big events. But I do realize that is how you get better. I mean, you have to kind of go through this. A lot of really good riders have gone through that. I think most of the best riders in the world have gone through this phase of like just falling and struggling and just not quite getting it every time. And I think having a good support system is so important, and keeping in mind, like going into the events. I am a very optimistic person. Like I believe if I'm going to a big event, I believe I'm going to be top 3, which is basically winning in my opinion. Like top 5, top 3, whatever, winning. And I'm like, I'm going to win. I know it. I'm going to go for it, And it's been, the hardest thing for me has been like not realizing that. Because as a child or as a younger person, if I tried to win, I was so lucky. I mean, I had good horses, I had good trainers, and I would do well. And then there was this time where like all of a sudden I would think I was going to do really well. I'd have this feeling like I'm going to win this weekend, and then no. And I would like bite it hard, and it just kept happening and happening and happening. Yeah. And I'm like, what is happening? Like I thought I had this thing where I thought if I tried real hard it would work out every time. But no, life teaches you differently. And I had to learn like to kind of pivot and figure out, is this first of all what I want to do? Is it worth it? And then how much is it worth it? And like really, and not take things so personally, which was a big one for me. Because I used to think if I am not winning, I am a loser, like I got really caught up in my results and like what it meant about me. And then Natalie helped me so much figure out like, results come and go. It's always changing. Like someone's going to beat you always, like someone's going to be beating you. The sport's changing like someone else will win next weekend and they'll forget about you. Like, it doesn't matter. You have to be who you want to be and be a good person to your horses and like strive, and that should be enough. And it has become that for me, which is so nice, because it was tough for a long time. I was like, you know, depressed, and not depressed, but I was struggling, like fighting for this win that no one's going to remember in 5 years. I mean, you know, who cares?
Right.
It's like so
Right.
silly.
This
I mean, it's
all
good
about
to
the long
care.
game.
Yeah, but and I never was that way. Like, as a younger person, I was always like, I would never do horses if I couldn't be competitive, like compete, because I love competing. It's so fun. But now I'm like, I love competing for sure, but I love horses, and I love like the journey with them, which sounds so not like me 5 years ago, even, you know, like 5 years ago, I'd be like, ew, I hate it when people say that. But I just feel so differently now. I think it's just the
Yeah.
whole life experience, you know?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then, Hannah, at Kentucky last year, you talked a little bit about experiencing like competition nerves, especially during cross country, and that it can even be hard sometimes to school for cross country without the adrenaline of the competition.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that about yourself, do you kind of have a plan for how you handle your nerves going into a big competition?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have shockingly, I mean, as a younger person, I was like really unorganized and kind of spastic, but now I love to know exactly how I want things to be and like to play them out. I mean, I'm very flexible as well. Like, I'm like, oh, whatever, if I can't find this exact breakfast, I will survive the day. You know what I mean? But I have a very specific kind of plan as far as like each show day goes and how I want things to work out, and mentally as well. Like, it's a very thought through idea. And I have, now that I've been working with Natalie for a while, she comes to the big events, and like we have like a 20-minute kind of chat before, especially cross country day. I'm pretty good on the other days because I really love competing and doing dressage, and show jumping is like I love it.
Yeah.
So I've got that pretty much sorted out. And I've gone through all the like battles of, oh no, I'm scared, I'm going to fail, and all that stuff. And I'm pretty good on that. But the cross country is so, I find, dangerous. I mean, it's scary to me. I don't want anything bad to happen to my horse. And it's really important to me that, you know, is the case, and that he's okay. So I have to kind of go through all of these steps where I work with Natalie, and I kind of, before the event and then during the event, and when I feel a little bit like a little bit out of my comfort zone, I'll talk to her, or if she's not there, I call her. But I do this thing that I actually did before her, where I like to kind of put myself in the situation where I'm feeling like I'm about to go in the box, you know, and I can feel it. I mean, right now I'm already there, like immediately, because I practice this so much. So I'm like, okay, I'm going in the box at Burley. And I'm like, I mean, the nerves just boom, all the way to 10 immediately. And I feel it, and I breathe through it, and then I'm okay. And then I can think about something else. And I kind of do that the whole week before a big event. But the day of, I find it, and then I go away from it. And I find it, and I go away from it, no matter how long, like depending on how much time I have before. Because I don't like to just all of a sudden be terrified. Because I can't. I mean, that does put you in peak performance sometimes, but I've found it to be hard to get into it. Like, it's too late, and then I'll have a run out early, you know, because I'm like frozen solids, terrified. So I do like to kind of.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've played with it a lot. I'm really interested in sports psychology years ago, and I like really read a lot of books and like studied other sports. And I think it's just so cool how the brain works. And like, I just think it's so useful. I mean, why not have this like thing that you can think about instead of being like, I'm terrified today, you know? And I just kind of play with it all day. And so I really enjoy it. It's like something that I love cross country day. Like, I don't actually love the idea of going cross country. I love cross country, but I love the day of it because I love the anxiety and like playing with like my personal nervous system and like seeing what I can handle and just kind of like going through the scales of it. It sounds insane, but it's a part of it that I really like, I guess.
Yeah, that's so super cool. And Hannah, is there any advice that you would give your younger self?
Probably like buckle up. Maybe try not to fall off in dressage warm up. That would be cool. No,
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I guess I wouldn't change anything. Maybe not. I don't know. I think I would tell myself to try not to be so focused on the results, you know. But I mean, I would learn it eventually anyways. I think everything happens for a reason, and I'm all for figuring things out the way that I've figured them out. And but yeah, I guess hold on tight would be my advice to myself. It's gonna get hard. It's gonna get really hard, and like you can do it. Just hold on, because I need that advice right now. I'm like, ugh, everything is hard, you know.
It would be such
But
great
it's
advice
worth it.
to give your younger self, just to.
You know, it's like everything has gone differently than I expected, which I hate. But I wouldn't change it. You know, like I'm so grateful to have these opportunities and to learn, and for people to still support me when I just keep screwing up, and like, and I'm trying my hardest. So it's not like I'm leaving anything on the table. So I'm doing my best. The best you can do.
And we are almost done, Hannah, but is there anything that you could share that people might not know about you? Like, I don't know, any fun hobbies or anything like
Um,
outside of horses that you do? Or
yes. Okay. I have two. I'm extremely good at axe throwing,
amazing?
which I only
I
learned
did one.
since moving here. I love axe throwing. I can get it bullseye every single time.
That's amazing.
And then also, I
What's
used to
that?
sing. I was a singer for a while.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, I haven't sang that much in a while, but I used to sing like national anthem at like sporting events and stuff. And then, which it was very hard and I do not desire to ever do again. But then, like, I'd sing at weddings and stuff, and sometimes funerals, which sad. But
But that's super cool. Yeah. I know we kind of covered a lot. So like if we kind of talked about everything, I just wanted to leave the floor open for you if there was
yeah, I mean,
anything
there's one thing actually that I didn't talk about at all, shockingly. I have an osteopath for my horses that is just the most amazing thing that's ever happened to any of us, my horses and me. And she is so wonderful. I guess it just, I mean, to say like, build a team around you that you trust and that you can relate to, and that like you become good friends. I think like all of the people that I work with my horses have become like these people that I love,
Yeah.
you know, and they're like
Supporting you.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that they support me, and they're on the same page as me all the time as far as like what we're going for, but also if the results don't show up, like they're just there for the horses and for me, you know. And it's so nice to have that support. And Megan, who works for me and my horses, she is just like a part of my family now. And I don't know what I did with like before her. It was just, you know, and she can do so many things for them. And it's so nice to be able to make them feel comfortable, because we ask so much of them. And I just think people get so caught up in like, oh, this horse is whatever. They didn't choose this.
Right.
They didn't wake up. They don't dream about the Olympics. They want to be with their friends and eat. That's it.
Exactly.
Like they don't have thoughts of jumping courses, you know, at night. They want to eat and be with their friends and be
Right.
comfortable, you know? So I think it's important that people keep that in mind. Like, and even myself, like I have to sometimes be like, hey, this horse didn't choose this. So if they don't want to do it or it's not going right, like that's on you. Like you got to make it better for them somehow. Make it
Right.
easier for them in their body or their brain or whatever. Like maybe the task is too hard. Maybe they can't do it. Like they're not choosing to be bad most of the time. It's very rare. So I think that's important to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then you said we'll look to see you and Benny at Morven. Is that right?
Yeah, and I also have a really cool horse called Carsonstown, owned
Oh,
by Chris Dishmit, in the Four Long there.
okay.
So, and I'm hoping to get to the 5-star as well in the spring. So he's amazing.
Awesome.
So
Well,
fingers crossed.
absolutely the best of luck. And Hannah Sue, thank you so, so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this week's conversation with Hannah Sue Hollberg, and a big thank you to the episode's sponsor, Horse Week. You can subscribe to the Practical Horseman podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. While you're there, please rate and review the show. Thanks again for joining us today. I'm Alana Harrison, and you've been listening to the Practical Horseman podcast.